So thank you guys for coming again. Today we're going to talk about the sugya of Arvus, which is the idea that the Gemara says Kol Yisrael Arivin Zeh B'Zeh, which is about mutual responsibility that Jews have for one another. I'm going to hand out some worksheets that I put together. I brought a few pencils too. And the idea of Arvus, I'm going to start by saying a little story to set the tone a little bit. So I heard a story once from a Chabad Shliach. He told me a story about the Rebbe, Chabad Rebbe. He said that he once met a woman when he was in South Africa, and the woman told him about when she grew up in a very small town in Zimbabwe, how when she was growing up, it was a very small Jewish community, like 10 men, very small, and there was one guy in town who knew how to read Hebrew. So he did everything for them. He would do all the Torah reading and the laning and the davening and for everyone in the community. And then one day, this man passed away. There's no one to do anything. That's what they're going to do. They had no one to lead the services. And so this one day, there was an Israeli family who was touring, totally not religious, no connection, but he was Israeli, so he spoke Hebrew. So the community went over to him and they said, we need your help. We need you to run the davening and everything. And he said, I can't do that. I'm not religious. That's not my thing. Right? So they said they're pressuring him. We need you. The whole community needs you. They're pressuring him. So he agreed to do it. And for the next few weeks, he was not a religious guy there with his family, and he was leading all the services to shul. And then he stops and he thinks about this. He said, this is ridiculous. I have to make a decision. Either I'm gonna actually believe in this stuff, or I gotta leave and leave them behind. So he says, God, you have to give me a sign when I'm out of here. And as this is going on, cut to 770. The Rebbe is talking to some shluchim, and he was planning on making a flight to Africa. So he says, make a stop. And the Rebbe tells one of the shluchim to make a stop over in Zimbabwe. And so the next day, this guy who was leading all the services bumps in the street into this frum guy, and he's floored. He says, okay, that's it. And that was his sign, and he became religious. And this woman who was telling Shliach the story, she was a young girl at the time. She told over the story to this man, and then it came to me. So what we see from the story is that the greatness of the Rebbe is that he was able to feel like he didn't know who any of these people were, right? But there's something about having a sense of care for any Jew, even if you don't know who he is, right? That's like a really high level. But for us, that's something that there's just something that we can resonate to, where even if we don't know what's going on in Zimbabwe, right? What's our perspective towards the broader Jewish community, and even to Jews who we are close with, what is our connection, our relationship with them? So I want to talk about Arvus. It's the term that the Gemara says is Kol Yisrael Arivin Zeh B'Zeh. We're all connected to one another. That's what the first question I want to start is, what is the word Arvus? Where does that term come from? Anyone have any ideas about what the word Arvus means? Maybe shoresh, any other context where it comes up?
Isn't the shoresh mean to mix?
Okay. Yeah, so something that's mi'urav is if you take two things and mix them together, you have a taroves. I think they're mi'urav, they're mixed together. So how does that connect to this idea of mutual responsibility?
Maybe we're all in this mixture and we have to be responsible for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. We're all in this together. Nice, you're safe. We're all in this together, and we have to care about one another because we're all in the same boat. Any other ideas of Arvus, Kol Yisrael Arivin? Anybody?
I think an Arv is someone who's a guarantor on maybe a loan. So maybe when it comes to being a guarantor for other Jews of Kol Yisrael, that sense of responsibility that an Arv would have for a loan, you also have to feel towards one another.
Exactly. It's a great example. There are actually two different types of guarantors in Dini Mominus. One of them is a typical Arv, where if I would give Ariel a loan, so your name again? David can say that if Ariel's not able to pay, David can get Ariel's back and say if Ariel's not able to pay the loan, then David will pay me. Right? So David's doing you a big favor by helping you out if he wouldn't be able to pay. So that's one type. That's one type of Ariv. Another type of Ariv is a more ambitious type of Ariv, which is called an Ariv Kablan, where David would tell me, he says, Stephen, you can pay Ariel the money. You don't even have to go to him. You can come straight to me. Right? Ariel doesn't have to pay first. Right? So that's clearly, I think, even higher level. So the question is, to what extent is this responsibility that we have for one another? How does this come into effect? Okay, so we talked about Arvus and what the word means. Is it that we're all mixed in, Klal Yisrael all together, so we should care about one another, or is it more connected to Arvus, which comes up in Dina Mominus? Both of those ideas could be connected to one another. But let's talk about a little bit now where the term comes up and what's the source for it. I'm going to briefly go through just a few Gemaras. We went to them inside to try to save a little time. So we have on our sheets over here the first three Makoros. The first one is Rashi al Torah. So Rashi is talking about a pasuk in Parshas Nitzavim, and I'm not going to go into the context right now, but he says that Mishikiblu at the end Mishikiblu le'em es hashivua b'har grizim v'har ival v'nasu arim zelazeh. So Rashi is saying that once at this point in Jewish history, when we crossed the Yarden together and we stood by the mountains, Har Grizim Har Ival, and we heard the brachos and the klalos, and everyone said Amen. So at that point, Kol Yisrael Nasu Arim Zelazeh. Right. So seemingly one interesting thing that we see from Rashi is that this isn't something that's automatic. Right. Arvus. There was a point where before Arvus, and then Arvus started. Right. It's something that was born. Right? So if you guys have any ideas as to why this particular moment, what is it about a moment like this that would cause, that would generate this concept of Arvus? Any ideas?
Regarding mitzvos of the Veros, we make sure that you have Arvus to everyone else to make sure that they are doing the correct thing and not doing the wrong thing.
Okay, but why do you think that this was an event that was so important?
This was elucidating everything all the good things that could happen, all the bad things that could happen, and therefore you have Arvus to make sure that the good things do happen by helping each other out to do that, as well as making sure the bad things don't happen to each other regarding making sure they don't do the bad things.
You're saying once we know what our mission is supposed to be, then we have a more clear picture of what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to help other people move on the same path. But maybe if I can ask a little further. What is it that makes people feel responsible to other people, right? It is harder, like from the story of the Rebbe, you never met someone before, right? To feel invested in their future, right? But what is it about this where it does make sense for them to, it does make sense for them to care about one another? Wasn't so clear. Let me clarify. Yeah.
I mean, if there's some notion of maybe collective punishment when it comes to sinning as a nation, so that might tag you along with other people's faith. So if you're not watching out for them, then you're going to be sunk with their ship if they're digging a hole in their boat.
And that's actually what the Gemara in the next source talks about. All right, very well done. The Gemara in Shuas in source number 2 says that when it comes to Kol Yisrael Arim Zelazeh, it says. It's talking about the Isser of Shvua Sheker. So it says for Shvua Sheker, then Nifron Mimenu, the person who takes the false oath, he gets punished. But the Kan Mimenu V'Kol Olam Kulo. In general in the Torah, when you sin, then it's only your problem. But for a false Shvua, then if one person says a false Shvua, and it affects the whole world. The Gemara asks, but Kol V'Yesh B'Torah Mikol Olam Kulo. But I thought that you can actually be punished. I thought that when it comes to every Isser, everyone else is punished for one person's Isser. And then it says, right, Kol Yisrael even Zelazeh. So Hasam Sheish B'Yadam Limchos V'Lo Michli. The Gemara actually concludes that it's that typically if it's not your fault, in a typical case, then you can't be held accountable for what somebody else does. But the notion of Arvus teaches us that if somebody else, like Ari was saying, if somebody else is going to sin, and we're able to stop them from doing that, then we are held accountable for their sin by not interrupting them. So by not preventing them from doing so. So exactly, that's a great example, all right, of a case where we are responsible to, possibly from Har Grizim Har Ival, this shared experience where we all accepted the mitzvos and the veros as a group, so that obligated us to watch out for one another, and potentially in more of a positive direction. The Gemara in Sota, which we'll just say outside, talks about how when we stood together by the mountains, it says that every mitzvah that we received had a bris, covenant signed on it for all of Klal Yisrael. So that might even have a more ambitious idea that it's not just that we have to care about when other people are doing something wrong, but it's actually incumbent upon us to make sure that other people are doing things that are good. Okay, so I want to transition into the next part of this year. Sorry? 10 minutes? It's been 10 minutes. Okay. So we'll begin it. Just to do some here. So the next part is going to be, well, let's see how much we can do. A practical application of Arvut. There's a Gemara, which we're going to talk about in a second, where it talks about how two different scenarios. One scenario, tell you guys a story. Let's say Ariel and I spent Shabbos together in Great Neck? Queens. And then we both are going back to Ariel's house for Havdalah, right? And then we make Havdalah, and then afterwards, right, Ariel's brother comes home. His brother didn't hear Havdalah, right? So his brother doesn't want to make Havdalah again. So Ariel says, so his brother asks Ariel to make Havdalah for him, but Ariel already heard Havdalah, right? So the question is, if Ariel can make Havdalah for his brother when Ariel already was Yotzei, the mitzvah of Havdalah, right? Is he able to do that? Scenario number 2 is, Yosef and I are going out for, some steaks, post tutoring club weekly special. Going out for some steaks. Or I guess there's no steaks around here. We go out for some burgers, let's say. And we both order a burger. And they serve me my burger very quickly. Okay, so I'm very fast. I eat my whole burger. And then by the time I finish with my burger, they give you your burger. And you say, Steven, wow, you made such a great bracha on your burger. I want you to make your bracha for my burger too. Right? But I already finished eating, so I'm not going to make any more brachas on my food. But Yosef wants me to make the bracha for him to be able to eat his food. Right? So the question is, in both of these cases, are you able to make the bracha for someone else? Can you make the bracha? Can Ariel's brother, can Ariel make a bracha of Havdalah for his brother when Ariel already heard Havdalah and he doesn't need to make Havdalah anymore? And can I make a hamotzi, let's say, for Yosef if I'm not the one who's going to be eating? So we're going to take a vote. Let's see what you guys think. If you think that the bracha is able to be made in both scenarios, thumbs up. If you think that it's neither scenario is able to make the bracha, we're going to do thumbs down. And if you think it's only one, not the other, we're going to do middle thumbs. Okay, what do you guys think? You take a minute to think, and then you'll do your thumbs. What do you guys think? See, 2 minutes. Oh, keep your thumbs up. Oh, we have 1 thumbs down, 1 thumbs up, 1 middle thumb. What do you think, David? 2 middle thumbs. Okay. Ariel, why did you do a thumbs up?
Because you could have someone be a shliach for you and do a mitzvah for you,
Could be. Right? So you think that the idea of shlichus, the fact that we're able to do things on other people's behalf, will let us make brachas for anyone, even if you already fulfilled the mitzvah yourself.
Yeah.
It's a great point. You want to argue that, Yosef?
Well, the person was already Yotzei in the mitzvah, so I don't think that he could be, do it on someone else's behalf once he's already been Yotzei.
No matter what.
Yeah.
You're saying if you make, what happens if you make a bracha when you're already Yotzei? What's the problem?
It would be a bracha levatala.
Exactly. So it says Yosef. It's bracha levatala. You can't just play around with brachos. So if you're already Yotzei, you don't need it yourself. So you should never be able to make a bracha. Okay, we're going to finish with this. David, why would you think there's a difference between the two cases? Do you agree with Ariel? Do you agree with Yosef?
So you can't make a bracha. I would think that you can't make a bracha for someone else's food because that's incumbent upon the person himself to make a bracha for their own food. But for Havdalah, which is more of a klal versus versus an individual requirement, then you could do it on behalf of the other person.
What do you mean by that when you say that food is for? Why do you think that food is for the person and the bracha is not?
You can't be Yosef for someone else on something that they can only do that is only able to be physically accomplished by themselves, as opposed to Havdalah, which can be Yosef in general.
You're saying since Yosef is the only one that's going to be eating his sandwich, so he's the only one that can make the bracha. But when it comes to mitzvahs, that's something that we're all obligated to do. So that's more of a general idea. So maybe we can help each other out for mitzvahs. I'll just conclude by saying what the Gemara says. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says that kol brachos kulon afal pi sheyatza motzi. That when it comes to every bracha, even if you already yotze the bracha, you can be motzi someone else in the bracha. You can make a bracha for someone else. Chutz mi berachas alechem berachas hayayin. And Rashi explains. This is talking about brachas on food. When it comes to brachas on food, Rashi explains that there's no outstanding chiyuv to make a bracha on food. If you want to, you can just not eat the whole day. You don't have to make brachas on food. It's not like there's a chiyuv. So if there's no chiyuv, you can't make the bracha for somebody else. But when it comes to mitzvos, this idea of arvos, Rashi explains this is based on arvos. This responsibility we have for one another allows us to say that even if I already fulfilled my mitzvah, I care about him fulfilling his mitzvah, so I'm able to make the bracha, even though we're up against bracha l'tal. So stay tuned.